Fresno, California, number 18, Hot Sauce Scelzi.
Look at this. We got 2 episodes in the span of like 8 days. Look at us.
It's a new record.
Here on Scelzi Says. I'm Chris Williams. Giovanni Scelzi joins me today, obviously, as we're going to kind of recap a crazy week in Knoxville and do some other racing topics as well. How are you?
I think I finally recovered from Knoxville. I mean, it's a long week. I mean, leading up to the week's long too. I feel like you go from, I think, somewhere in Wisconsin to Peevely to Williams Grove to Sunday at Weedsport, and then Weedsport, Peevely, and then you drive all night after Peevely to the Cappy Sunday, so you feel like a zombie on Sunday, and then your prelims Wednesday.
And you have, for a guy like you, all of your local sponsors too, so you kind of have to be on, like there's just people around.
Oh, for sure. And it sucks sometimes, but to get those guys, they love the Nationals more than other people, I feel like, because it is their home race, and a lot of them have only ever been to Knoxville. So it's their home. We have a suite there, obviously, and a lot of local sponsors, they bring their employees, their managers, their, production managers, all the guys that mean something to their company, and they expect to see your car run good.
I've been to the KCP suite. You all do it right,
man. It's
that's a party in there, man.
Oh man, they go hard. It's funny. So Matt, our biggest thing is qualifying. He tells me where to qualify, what lines to run. And he's like, I have to stay sober until qualifying. And as soon as qualifying's over, there's nothing else I can do for you. So for Wednesday night,
I love this sport.
Our typically Knoxville qualifying is top 1 and 2, top 3 and 4 the first lap, top 1 and 2, bottom 3 and 4 the second lap, because the sun shades 3 and 4. And he was
interesting. I never thought about that.
So I had my phone in staging. Our messages are pretty funny because they're just complete gibberish. It's like top, like there's typos and shit, but I know what he's talking about. But initially it was top, bottom, and then someone ran top, bottom both laps, and he's like fucking top, bottom. I'm like, man, I don't want to run the bottom both laps in 3 and 4, because if you fuck up your first lap in 3 and 4, you have no straightaway speed. So he said top, bottom, and I said, all right, let's go. And then we ended up qualifying, I think, 11th. So it was the right call for sure.
Yeah, it was the prelim was awesome. You were a fucking badass. Like nobody was beating you that night. And then the Nationals is so, and I have a friend, and you're gonna meet him, but he's kind of new to the sport, and I'm trying to explain the point system and like, oh, how could Gio win? And then he's starting 5th and and all that. But man, was that as good as you've won a lot there. But God, you were on fire. I mean, on Wednesday night.
Yeah, that was definitely, it's one of the best cars I've had throughout the week at Knoxville. 2021 was pretty good. I went 8th to 2nd behind gravel my prelim night, and probably could have won with more laps. But consistently throughout the week, that was definitely the best you were. And I feel like I like going Wednesday. I've always gone Wednesday, but Wednesday you get more cars littered throughout the invert. I feel like Thursday is pretty much the 8 best cars start 1st through 8th. And that's kind of how it was. Like it was Larson, Rico, Pittman, Courtney. All those guys were in the top 8. That's why they have like bigger points nights, I feel like, because Wednesday is typically a little bit wetter, which you saw turn 3 and 4 was pretty much crumbles all the way across it with grip. So it made the bottom easier to run. But Wednesday, I like being able to set the mark of points Wednesday. Like, hey, because Thursday I look at it as, okay, who do I have to beat? How high do I have to get? Wednesday, it's go as hard as you possibly can all night, earn that high mark of points, and then see what happens after,
So you win on Wednesday, start 5th on Saturday, and another great car. I mean, I felt like, you tell me if I'm right here, if that's maybe a 30 lapper like the old days, I mean, you had something for Larson, it felt like.
Yeah, I felt like from lap 15 to probably 35 or 40, we definitely were the best car. And I think I've accepted this second place better because that was all I had. Like that, mentally, physically, I was fucking tapped out. Like that was, and I did fade a bit with probably 10 to go. Like I got to Larson, ran the middle, which I should have just committed to the bottom. And I hadn't really run the top the whole race. So the cushion was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You saw Corey just pounding the cushion for 50 laps pretty much. I didn't really want to go up there. And then Brad was on the bottom. I mean, if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle. Like, if shit would have gone a different way, I might have been able to win that race. But without something happening to Larson, I think I was going to run second.
So I'm interested in this, and I have my own opinion on it. Like, I think Kyle brings so much to sprint car racing where I'm cool with him running these big events. It was really interesting to hear a sprinkling of booze for Kyle Larson in a sprint car race, because it doesn't happen, right? Like, do you like, would you rather him be there?
For
like,
sure. 100%.
I figured you would say that, but there's, this conversation is going now. He's led the last 100 laps in the Nationals, and there's people like, let
someone else win. Yeah.
Right. Where are you at on that?
I mean, there's always a driver in a certain era. It was Donnie Schatz the last 20 years. I mean, anybody but Donnie, but you have to respect, because me running second this year or Larson winning this year does absolutely nothing for you next year.
Mm-hmm.
You have to qualify. You have to make it through a heat race. And 2019, I believe it was, Larson went Wednesday and missed a show through his heat race, missed a show on his prelim, and flew to a NASCAR race, which why even try to race Friday? I don't think he could race Friday, even if he wanted to. So not that he's, sucks or whatever, has had a bad run, but like, those bad runs get overlooked when you win really 4 out of the last 5, including 2020, or 3 out of the last 4, not including 2020.
What was going on with, because he didn't even make the show at Eldora.
Nope.
What's the difference
from what I've heard? Well, Eldora's got a goofy format. If it was real Kings Royal format, we qualified 33rd. We start on the pole of the third heat. You win that, you start third in the Kings Royal. So again, the wheel, it is what it is. That's what the format is. But it's a tough race. You get a stacked heat race, kind of like Nationals, but it's tough qualifying, not knowing what the invert is for the heat race.
Yeah.
And they try to get rid of sandbagging, but for the last 40 years, it's been invert 36. So did people not sandbag the first 40 years of the race? Like, have a format and stick to it. I get they want to change it up and not have sandbagging and make it more fair for everybody, but it just, I don't agree with a not knowing your format going into a race. This shit's hard enough knowing your format, and it makes it way more difficult not knowing what you're going to end up.
So Larson is, I stopped short of saying untouchable, because I think you at times during that race had the car to beat
I agree.
him.
Yeah,
you agree with that?
I agree. Yep.
There was also an aspect of it, and your car owner kind of echoed this in his post race interview on Dirt Vision, where it's just like, he's the best in the world right now.
Yep.
Like, I was watching from a hotel room in Nashville, and I was
with Diffie.
With Diffie, and he's here in the studio with us. Diffie's my dog, by the way. I drove.
We should put him right here. He'd probably sleep.
He would probably just sleep right there. Yeah, I literally drove to Georgia to pick up my new dog, and it happened to be Nationals weekend, so I didn't get back. I was planning on it, and it just didn't happen. But I'm losing it in the hotel. I'm super, not even pissed, just like more sad for you and the guys than anything. But then, like, I woke up the next day and it was kind of like, God damn, like, Larson's like just on another level right now. But is there a moral victory to take from for a chunk of that race? You were better than him.
Yeah. And I sat with Danny Lasowski, so probably almost 5 a.m. Saturday night. And, you can go out and go to Dingus and, go crazy and get hammered, and which I did have quite a few drinks, some vodka Red Bulls with Danny. That's his drink of choice. But
just drinking vodka Red Bulls at 3 a.m.
Pretty much. And when Danny pours them, he calls it Max Cackle, because it does not taste very good. It's more vodka than Red Bull. But, Danny is such a determined guy. First thing was great job, first off, but this, and this, what could you have done to win that race? And it's like, man, I don't think I could have done anything more other than have Larson make a mistake. And that's why I've accepted it more. Like I said, is there wasn't a moment where I passed him and jumped the cushion and did something stupid where it was a mistake on me. Yes, I made mistakes throughout the end of that race. Small ones, missed the bottom or moved up when I shouldn't have, or didn't run the top quite as hard as I should have, not entering against the cushion. But at the same time, we talked for a long time, and it made me feel better. Like, he ran second 3 times before he won this race. And a lot of guys have run second before they won this race, Donnie as well. And have had really shitty mistakes and have done stupid things. But Donnie's told me for a championship and for a Knoxville Nationals, the first one's always the hardest. Once you prove to yourself you can do it and win that 50-lap race, after that, it's like, hey, I've done this. It's with anything in life. I've done this before. I can do it again.
Well, it's sports. I mean, Michael Jordan lost a bunch in the Eastern Conference Finals before he made an NBA Finals. That's the example I kind of go to, and felt like it was weird because I know you well enough I knew how you were going to react.
Yeah.
Like, I knew that you were not going to be, and you were choked up in victory lane.
Yeah.
I knew you weren't going to be celebratory, but I also, just as a fan, I felt like you in your program took a big step forward last week.
I mean, it's the first time I've legitimately contended for a Knoxville Nationals, and I started on the pole of the Nationals before. So I felt like this racetrack was a more Knoxville Nationals-esque style track. The cushion's big. It's hard to run. The bottom is getting narrower as the race goes on. Like, hats off to Knoxville. I know the beginning of the year, everybody was talking shit. It's rubbering. It's too wet. It's this, that. But when they get new clay on it, it takes time to figure it out. And with a dew point, humidity, it was cool all week, which was kind of weird. There wasn't a whole lot of track prep. I don't think they tilled the bottom one time throughout the week, which humidity's high, dew point's high, which you don't see that very often. Typically, the last really 3 years, it's been till the top, till the bottom, and then roll with it. But I think when they till the bottom, it almost creates like a fake grip on the bottom because it's really fast for 20 laps. And then when Knoxville throws those crumbles to the middle, those are normally wet crumbles that may have grip. When they till it, that's dust. So you blaze through the middle. You have no grip in the middle. Then you go from lap 20 to 40, pounding the cushion, can't run the bottom, and then it rubbers up, which is a fine racetrack. It's always good racetrack. But when you get the bottom wet enough where it hangs around and it doesn't get slick right next to the berm where you kind of have like a very thin lane of bottom to run, it was grip all the way to the berm. And the way they have the berm bladed, like the angle of it, I thought it was all really good. If you were good enough to pass, you could go forward.
The other aspect of this, I'm just curious, is from like a driver standpoint, when there weren't many restarts, but man, Larson in clean air is almost like a cheat code, right?
Yeah, like, and he said his shit didn't take off too.
Oh,
so the initial start, I think he said Pittman got ahead of him. Didn't close the door, which, again, that's a move you kind of have to make. I feel like I don't do it very often, but just to break their momentum and make them miss the bottom, and then you get away from them.
Well, because just being a 18 homer like I am, like, you're in these restarts in the second segment, and Dietrich was fast. Like you had a hard time with him.
Yeah,
and he slowed you down for better part of 4 or 5 laps.
Yeah,
it felt like,
and it sucks because
Larson's got clean air.
Yeah, and it's so hard because you get focused on a lane. I ran the bottom probably 40 of the 50 laps, maybe more, and it's a thing where do I run in behind this guy, hope he misses the bottom and squeeze under him, or just bail out, run the top, and try and get around him? But I feel like the bottom was definitely faster on Saturday, like throughout the whole race. And if you could run the top, like they tilled the top, bladed it, which knocked the cushion down, but it was still so wet, it peeled right back up to a curb. So lap 50, it was probably a foot tall, especially off the exit of 4. I got over at one time there in 3 and 4 and just kind of bailed out. Said I'm not getting near that thing again. And then I couldn't see Larson anymore. So it's like, man, pray for something to happen to him. But I heard Corey won straight away towards the very end, right behind me. I felt like he was damn near pushing me, and he was, but he was committed to the top for 45 of 50 laps. So you got, what's cool about that track is there was not a dominant lane. You could run the bottom. The middle kind of came in for a little bit, 1 and 2 especially. 3 and 4, the middle wasn't really there. You could kind of drive across it and catch on exit. But the amount of focus it takes to hit the bottom, and when you miss it once, you're like, okay, do I bail out? Do I get speed up again and go back down there? But definitely, if you the grip that was low down the straightaways, you could kind of bail out low again, enter low, give a little bit on entry to get that drive on exit.
What did Lasowski say? Did he give you any tips? Like,
yeah,
I know it was fresh, but did he think you should have done anything different?
Yeah, his question was, what happened when you got to Larson? Because I got to him down the straightaway probably within 4 or 5 car lengths. Larson went to the bottom in 1 and 2, which he had not been running the bottom, and I moved up to run the middle, lost 4 or 5 car lengths, and I think it was Brad Sweet on the bottom, and maybe Zomer didn't make the show, or Henderson on the top. They were right side by side. So at that point, he clears both of them, and it's like, all right, I got to pick a lane here to get by. But I tried to run the middle through them, didn't work. I don't think I ever actually lapped Brad the second time. But it was what happened when you got to him, because you could see him obviously, and the bottom and 3 and 4 is where I made most of my time, and that was really my own lane. Nobody was running down there until you got to lappers. So, and again, I just did something happen? I wouldn't know. I don't think something specifically happened. It was just like I didn't get by those guys fast enough and get back in the groove of chasing Larson.
Well, it sucked, but there's a hell of a lot worse scenarios than the weekend.
A lot of good cars had very, very bad weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, look at gravel.
And you still went to victory lane, which is a big deal in Knoxville in general. You had a good payday, and it feels, I'm really excited to see what you do the rest of the year. Like, I know it's kind of like Indy, where now we're on the downhill.
Yeah, that's for the peak, and then you're down from there.
Yeah, but I think that just even talking to you, like not that you were lacking confidence before, but it feels like everybody's pretty excited here.
Very. And the cool thing, I thought, I'm a Corey Day fan. We actually share a birthday, November 28th.
He ran real good.
I think he's 18.
Yeah.
And I know, I made the show. Obviously, I've made the show every year, but there was no way I was mentally or physically strong enough to run on the podium my first couple of years. And for him to get out of the car and not really be winded and be able to go longer is very, very impressive. And to do that at that young of an age, I hope they take him to NASCAR and don't let him race the Nationals in the future.
It does sound like that he's on the Hendrick rocket ship now.
Seems that way, which with the help from Larson and the high limit thing with them having some NASCAR backing and obviously Larson vouching for him is cool to see him do it. And, he's young and I'm still young, but your judgment at that age isn't probably the most mature. I don't know if that's a right word to say, but I think if Corey can figure out what he wants to do, he is going to excel at anything he does.
Well, it was fun. I know you made a ton of fans too. You had a good day at the merch trailer. Thanks to everybody who came out and bought T-shirts.
I know Maddie's still tired.
Good. That's a good problem. And then you're in victory lane and I'm not your media coach. I'm not trying to be, but I always encourage you to be authentic and be yourself, because to me, that's what fans want. And I promise you won over people when you were choked up. I know it wasn't a show, but there was just so much emotion pouring out of you. Yeah. Even in a second place. Where did that come from?
There are a few things that caused it. I think one thing is you're in victory lane, you're on the podium, and you're standing next to the guy that won the biggest race that you have always wanted to win. So seeing Larson win for a third time, I think it was bittersweet a little bit, because that was my first time on the podium, but at the same time, it's like you're one step away from where you want to be. And the other reason is Tim Malico was a huge part of this race. He passed away June of 2023, I believe. And in 2018, Brett Nearing got divorced when Ian still drove the car, and he's a part owner in the team, and looked like it was probably going to go under. Obviously, at the time, I didn't care. I wasn't involved in the race team, but 2020, he was a big reason the team stayed around. Him being involved in Rasmussen Group, which is still a huge part of our race team. Jeff and Kurt Rasmussen. Jim Rasmussen obviously remember the Jensen Construction yellow 55 car that Skip Jackson, Terry McCarl drove it. That was a big car out of Knoxville. They own that car. And he was always a very motivational person for me. Didn't know him super well. Only knew him for 4 or 5 years, but felt like I had known him for a long time. And him not being there, and he was always a huge advocate for the race team. Very, very positive person, understood how racing worked, and I felt like probably my biggest fan to want to see me be successful and see the race team be successful as well. And him not being there was a little bit upset. He always gave me shit because he hated 360s. And when we won 360 Nationals, he was like, "Yeah, but it's 360 Nationals. Like, you didn't win the big one." I'm like, "Well, fuck you." But no, it's if he was here today, he would have been very, very proud of what we did.
Yeah. Well, it was cool. Just a good weekend all around, and looking forward to the rest of the season. I wanted to get your take. A huge NASCAR story on Sunday night. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you follow NASCAR?
Probably 6, I would say.
Okay. So
I know what's going on. I don't watch the races live. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and Aiden does have some video here from Richmond on Sunday night, and I want to get your take from a driver's standpoint, because this is really fascinating. You have Austin Dillon, who's 32nd in points. NASCAR's whole deal is you win a race.
You're in.
Most of the people listening to this know how this thing sets up. But Aiden, if you don't mind playing it, and this is foxsports.com. I believe we took it from their Twitter feed. Walk me through this, because I want to see where you land on Austin Dillon's move.
Yep. So green, white checker, obviously, right?
Yes. And Logano gets out just kills him on the restart.
So
right?
If you're Dillon, like Logano's in, he's already won this year, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So he's in the championship. Denny Hamlin's obviously in the championship. So both guys around you have already won races. They're in the chase, or the countdown, whatever.
Correct.
Chase, I think. Yeah.
So right now we're going into 1, going into 2, and this race is over.
Yeah. You're not going to pass him. But I'd be curious to see what his radio guy, his spotter's not telling him, "Hey, wipe the 22 out to
Actually,
win."
he did.
Did he really?
Yeah.
No shit.
It's on the radio.
Okay.
The spotter's saying, wreck him.
So there you roll her in deep.
So that's not a pause it, Aiden. That's not racing though, right?
No.
This was my problem with it. And you had all these idiots being like, "Oh, Earnhardt would have done that." And
that's a good pause there.
he basically just floors it and uses the 22 as,
and then goes, oh shit, I'm not going to win, and wipes the 11 car out.
Would you have done that move in that scenario with the playoff situation?
No, I don't. I've told myself before, like, if there's someone I don't like, next time I get to them, I'm wiping them out. But I've never had the balls or stupidity or whatever you want to call it to do that. But I mean, what a reaction there to wipe the 11 car out too. Like, it's anyone near me is getting crashed. It's like the Family Guy episode when it's the Asian lady that's like, good luck everybody else, and just wipes the whole freeway out pretty much.
I don't know.
And then guys are celebrating.
Oh, that was my biggest problem with it was not like, it pissed me off. And for what it's worth, the 22 and the 11 going into that race probably would have been my least favorite drivers in NASCAR.
I mean, how would you feel if coming to the checkered, I wiped out Larson, drove him into the fence, and
then
that's whoa, on top of the wing?
That's the problem. And then he went out there and thanked Jesus for putting him in this spot. And his crew's like, I don't know, like it really rubbed me just from the sporting aspect of it, because it's like sometimes you just lose, right? Like
sometimes you just lose. That's a pretty good way of looking at it.
Like, and he got beat on that restart, and it sucks. He had the best car, and it, Stenhouse made a bonehead move to put it to a green-white checker, but
NASCAR has manufactured these finishes.
Yeah,
there's no other racing sport. I mean, NHRA is, but you're not going to crash a guy drag racing. It's not possible to do that. But you have to beat the guy fair and square. And if you're 32nd in points, obviously you've had a pretty shitty year. So
was he in the wrong? Like with sponsorships, we're talking millions of dollars. Yep. Now, my opinion. I hated it. It's just a racing fan. But like, you could make the argument that he's playing within the parameters too, but it sucks. I mean, like, that's an iRacing move.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, NASCAR's manufactured these finishes. Look at going into Phoenix. You win, whoever finishes highest, you win the race. And if you're going to a championship to win your first championship, and
that's an argument I keep hearing.
You're to the guy's bumper. It's always going to be I mean, that's not for a championship, obviously, but it's for a chase spot. You're going to be known as the guy that got. And what sucks is if they're struggling, they'll probably lose the first round of the chase. They'll probably be out in the 16th.
But what if you are at Phoenix though, and you're going into turn 4 and you can just drive into a guy
if Austin Dillon did it at Richmond for a chase spot, he's going to do it for a championship spot,
Well, and one of the arguments that Hamlin made on his podcast that I thought was really interesting, I thought was really interesting, was that the amount of like young drivers who are trying to get to that spot, and it's just, they may see it. They're a 15-year-old running a late model, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go on a rant here for a second,
okay.
So get ready.
Yeah, no.
The
away.
Problem with, I felt like the way I was raised and the way young racers are raised today is you race outlaw karts, you race micro sprints. And I've watched California Speed Week, I've watched Tulsa Shootouts, I watch all that stuff to see, watch young kids come up. And a lot of the time, it's the parents that are advocating for crashing people, which sounds dumb, but it's the truth. Like, you watch, you can get hurt in a micro sprint. There's no question. You can get hurt in any kind of race car. But when you get into a sprint car, you figure out crashing hurts. And especially when you have to work on your shit the next day, when it's 100 degrees outside, and you think, okay, well, if I wad this guy up and I might wad myself up, I could win the race and you're the best, whatever. But at the same time, you can crash both you guys and look like a dumbass, whether it's a micro, a sprint car, whatever. And I think kids don't realize that because they don't have to work on their own shit. And their dad will tell them, it's same as Little League Baseball. Sometimes the dads and parents are into the sport more than they are. They want to go eat grass and play with butterflies out in the outfield, and they're not involved in racing. But I learned at a young age I hated it more than anything, and I'm glad my dad made me do this, was Sunday was our family day of washing race cars. And there was nothing more I wanted to do than Sunday morning, wake up and play video games or whatever game Jack and Daxter at the time. Was not, I mean, there were times I would fake I was asleep, not have to go wash the race cars. And going from Friday at Visalia to Saturday at Lemoore, you had to wash your shit that night. And I was 12 years old, so I was half asleep on the way home. And, my dad instilled a very, very good work ethic in me you have to get your shit done. And knock on wood, nothing ever fell off our micros. Nothing has fallen off my sprint cars. And you see them after Knoxville Saturday, my guys drove to the car wash, washed their stuff that night, put it in the shop, backed it in, unloaded the car, and it was sitting there ready to work on Monday.
And well, because you're saying it in a much nicer way than what I was thinking it, but like, I'm thinking to myself, and maybe this isn't fair, I've never met Austin Dillon, but it's like, it's kind of this guy who it's perceived he didn't really have to work to get where he is. Again,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's fair or not.
Yeah.
I remember watching him in a truck out in Newton, kicking everybody's ass. You know, so I've seen him win races on the way up, and you don't just luck into that.
Right.
The guy's won at the highest level of the sport, but there's also like what he's fighting is that perception.
Yeah.
And I hated, like, I would have had a lot more respect for it. I would have hated the move, but if he would have got out of that car,
so I wadded them up. Yeah.
And you would have just seen his face be like, fuck, I hate how I had to do that.
Yeah. Explain. Hey, NASCAR made me do this.
Yes.
This is the format. There's no points. There's no nothing.
I did this for my sponsors. Yeah. I did this.
And he probably would have got more respect for it.
I know I would have.
Yeah.
But the problem was he got out and played the Jesus card, and then his pit crew's going crazy, and then his grandpa, and I hope Mr. Childress, who's done more for that sport than I hope he's of good health, but he's acting completely delusional to everything. Like, they're literally playing him for him, the spotter yelling, wreck him.
Yeah.
And he's doing the whole like, oh, you can't believe what you hear on the internet. Well, no, sir. Like we have the evidence. Like it just came off really bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're just, like, are we like alternative facts here? Like what is going on? I hated how they responded. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah. And what sucks is like sprint car racing. You can buy the best team, you can buy the best motors, buy the best crew chief, but that doesn't mean you're going to buy success. Doesn't mean that as much in cup racing, but it sure helps when you have a good car and a good team to be successful and put yourself at least in those positions.
And in Austin's defense, he doesn't have a great car and a great team right now. Childress has fallen off a lot.
Nope. So he saw his chance and he took it. I mean, that again, I don't respect the move, but after the race, if you could at least get out and say, yeah, I wadded them up. My spotter told me to. I had to get in the chase by doing this. We're 400th in points, and it would have been the end of it there.
It's kind of a read the room thing too, and I don't know. Like what I hated too is I'm a history NASCAR guy. Like I literally just got back from Georgia and I went to the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame and saw where Bill Elliott was from. Like that's what I do on vacation. So like the whole it's the 3 cars back and all this shit, and it's like no, like it's not back. Like it just the whole thing just left me in a really everything you said is true. Like you have to do it, all that stuff, yada yada yada. You don't have to do it. That's a bad. You didn't say that.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people saying that. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, you definitely don't have to.
You have a choice to make.
Yeah.
And he made the choice to. That is a video game move that sure, Logano's been dumped. Logano's dumped a ton of people. Yeah. Hamlin's dumped a ton of people. But it just as a fan, like I'm totally cool if we're at Martinsville and you nudge a guy out of the. Like I hated it when Hamlin did it to my guy Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
I hated it. I was pissed.
Yeah.
But it's also you're on a half mile.
Yep.
Shit happens there. That is part of that.
Yep.
What he did when he's 4 car lengths back of Logano, you can't control yourself driving in that hard.
Yeah, and look, I heard Logano say I didn't back my corner up at all. I ran my corner like I always would. It wasn't like he slowed up to try to block him and then he just ran in the back of him.
No,
it was like if Logano wasn't there, Dillon was going to end up by the fence, if not in the fence.
And the Hamlin part of it was even more disappointing, probably because it's really dangerous
to hook someone the wrong way into the fence. Yeah.
It was almost like, fuck you. I don't care what happens.
It was
here.
Whoever was near me was getting crashed before the finish line. If I can get to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard somebody else like, that's a Hail Mary. It's like, no, that's not even a Hail Mary. Like,
well, if you're Denny Hamlin, you go, haha, dickhead. And then wham, you're in the fence,
Yeah. And NASCAR got what it wanted though, because they've had more publicity. We don't talk about NASCAR races on this show very often.
No, but that was it got us talking about it. Yeah.
And right now we're recording this middle of the day on Wednesday, so I'm sure some sort of a fine or penalty is going to be coming out on this.
Well, I remember now that I thought about it was when Ricky Stenhouse punched someone. I don't remember who it was.
It was Kyle Busch.
Okay,
who is Dillon's teammate.
Yeah. So Ricky Stenhouse punches Kyle Busch. It's on every single NASCAR run, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and then they fine him for it.
Yeah,
it's like, bullshit. Hey, so you're going to advertise this for your racing is hardcore, and then fine him for it, which I get it. That's probably in the rules. You have to get fined if you punch someone, but at the same time, don't advocate for it and you want raw racing, but then fine the guy for it. I'm sure Nas or whoever paid it, he didn't have to pay it. I wouldn't think I'd have paid it for him.
There was another. I thought of this. My conspiracy theory brain started going crazy. You tell me if it's possible. Stenhouse isn't even racing Ryan Preece for position. Is it possible that he hates RCR so much that he does that to try and take away a win from Austin Dillon because of his rivalry with Kyle Busch? That's the first thing that came. That is the first thing that came to my mind. Is that a me problem, or is that possible?
I can tell you on the aspect of racing against cars you previously driven for, there is a little bit in the back of your mind saying, I want to beat that car more than anybody else. Now, if I were to get fired from KCP and someone else was driving it, I probably wouldn't intentionally wad them up just because they got rid of me. But at the same time, there's not a car on the track you want to beat more and prove to those guys, hey, you shouldn't have fired me. I deserve that ride.
It's fascinating. Yeah. Well, we're recording this. By the time you guys listen to this, there's probably some sort of a penalty or
something.
But I don't know. If in my opinion, if you're like, Chris, you're running NASCAR, what do you do? I let him keep the win. But he's not playoff eligible is what I would do. I would say you have to win one more because my whole thing is it's just we're not WWE here.
Yeah,
you can't do that in any other form of racing. They would DQ you on the spot.
Well, I can tell you
we have to draw a line somewhere.
I agree, or it just goes.
Yeah, if you do that in an Outlaws race, what happens?
Nothing.
Really,
nothing. I mean, not to go back to a terrible time, but Pittman got into Jason Johnson when they crashed and they finished the race. I think Pittman ran second or third. So there is no rough driving there. Like at Houston this year, I don't remember who it was. Might have been Reitzel. Someone completely blatantly destroyed someone to win the race. He got parked immediately in the feature, got sent to the infield. So with the outlaw stuff,
the lower levels is like that.
Yeah.
Like Saturday night dirt track, most of them would
modifieds, even local sprint car racing.
Yeah.
But no, there's nothing in the world of outlaws to say that. I mean, you can completely destroy someone if you don't destroy yourself.
In my opinion, you guys need protected even more. Just with the history of your sport, the danger of your sport.
Yep. And I mean, they've improved facilities. We had an owners meeting on Friday before the Nationals, and we talked about safe racetracks and where we want to go and where we don't want to go. But not to always go back to it, but the high limit split has limited some racetracks that the Outlaws can go to, as well as high limit can go to. So there are dirt vision tracks and there are flow tracks that don't want to cross over. Some have. Wichita has. Port Royal did last year. West Memphis has an outlaw show coming up later in the year where the high limit show, the guy blew right out of the fence.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah. Like, and is that going to get better, you think?
Allegedly. I mean, look at Peevely. Peevely's fence is not in good shape.
Yeah.
But being involved with the World of Outlaws, they see these problems happening. They want to protect themselves anyway, and the drivers, not just themselves.
Yeah.
But okay, Peevely's a track we're going to invest in for a long time. We're going to have midgets there. We're going to have sprint cars there. The Ironman's a huge race. So is the show in May. So, all right, I'll put up the $100,000 to build a new fence if you sign a 5-year contract with me to only have outlaw shows or dirt vision shows, which makes sense. Yeah. Why would you not want to protect yourself? I don't want to invest this money in this facility and then next year, we're going to go high limit
This
racing.
is so much like college football.
It is. Yeah. I'm going to give you money and you Fox, only can play with me.
Yeah. Where we own your rights now. Yeah. There'll be a time. And you remember this date. What date is this? This is
14th.
There's going to be a time where they're going to start trying to assign you drivers like Flow and Dirt Vision, where they're going to start recruiting. They may already.
Yeah.
Where it's beyond the sanctioning body. And they're like, wow, Gio has surpassed 100,000 people on Twitter.
Yep.
He's got a huge following.
Yep.
And I'm telling you,
and I mean, to that point,
or the sanctioning bodies are going to try and lock you guys up into long-term contracts.
So it's funny you say that. Bobcat, the Bobcat that sponsors us is Capital City Bobcat in Des Moines. Mark Cruz and Brian Jansen run it. And we've been going after Bobcat Corporate, which is up in Fargo for 2 or 3 years now. He put marketing platforms together for him. And their answer pretty much is Gio's not an influencer. He doesn't have enough Twitter followers, not enough Instagram followers. Your race team doesn't have enough of an influence on social media to make it make sense for us.
It's almost like I've been telling you this shit for a while.
Crazy. And I'm the last guy that wants.
You're just like journalists now. We have to have if we don't have that, Gio, sponsors don't want to be with it. We're like race car drivers now.
Yep. And it's hard because there's many. I mean, look at Joseph Newgarden. He deleted all his social media. I'm pretty sure. Which he's in a position obviously to have us. He's already raced. He's won Indy 500s, won championships before. But the last thing I want to do after I ran second at the Nationals is go tweet and thank everybody how awesome this was to run second. It's just not who I am. I mean, if there's shit I see that I want to tweet about,
just be you, man.
Yeah, most of my Twitter is retweeting race day posts and cool pictures I see and dogs.
Well, on that note, this another reason why if you're a Gio fan and you're listening to or watching this, where if you can like, share, give us positive reviews, all that stuff matters in the digital world. It with algorithms and stuff like that. And you are like, this is Gio's tired of me hitting him over the head with it. This is an important part of your career going forward. Stuff
and,
like we're doing right now.
I mean, if you guys that watch this show, we've had 7 or 8 episodes now. If you want to see certain guests, if you want to see us talk to each other, or have Chris leave and just do it me, which is what I think we should do, but whatever. But no,
Get your own fucking studio,
exactly.
Man.
You know, if you guys want to see certain stuff with the show, or there's stuff you like or don't like, tell us. You know, that's the only way we know.
Yeah, and we're committed to this. We're talking about doing some stuff too, and you're going to go to Australia, right?
Yep. Yeah. So just
that's going to be tough to do those.
Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna have to do them in the middle of the night.
I think they have cell phones over there, don't they?
They got cell phones, but the time thing, we'll figure it out.
Well, it's 12 hours ahead. Sydney's 12 hours ahead. I guess Perth would be like 16 hours ahead.
Maybe we could do a work trip, Aiden. Go down to Australia.
It's not that far.
Go down to Aussie.
Sounds budget friendly too. So.
Well, that's why we get a sponsor, and they just no.
If you fly cattle, it's probably $2,500 for a round trip ticket. So it's expensive, but you can make it.
Well, and I mean that, like, if we after the Lasowski show with your dad, and people were really excited. It's Nationals. I had a ton of people reach out. My guy Steve, he came down and saw you in the pits. He sent me the pic of you flipping me off. That was good.
Yeah, I was like, "Is this going to Chris?" And I was like, "I wonder if this guy likes Chris or doesn't like Chris."
That guy's like my second dad. Yeah. So but that's a great example. A guy doesn't know sprint car racing. He took this show in because of his connection to me, and he's now a Gio fan. Yep. He went and bought a shirt, got a pit pass, and comes and sees you in the pits. Yep. Like, that's where all this stuff matters. So if you want more of these episodes, like us, subscribe to us, share it on your social media platforms, because that all helps us grow. And in the end, you're going to help the 18 win races. Yep. Even it's like a weird indirect way, but it does matter.
Yep. And on top of that, like Ryan Hoover's wife, Jana, she goes to races because Ryan likes racing. But, you know, she was cheering for me Wednesday and Saturday, and he kind of looked over. He's like, wow, like, she's invested in this race team now. Like, you know, she's cheering for someone when you, and they love McKenna, which is a great, you know, girl power like that.
She sounds awesome. Like she's doing better too.
I think so. Yeah. That was a massive crash she had, but like,
I was worried about her.
Yeah. And even your daughters to be able to see a girl, wow, a girl can do this. Like, this is amazing. And that doesn't matter how she runs, but it really doesn't matter how she runs, because she takes the time to talk to fans after the races. And her line is the longest out of anyone almost, other than Larson. But to get your wife, your kids, your daughters, your sons to cheer for someone at the races, when they want you to go to the racetrack, it's like, I've succeeded. Yeah. You know, I've done it.
I'm working on my 4-year-old with that.
Yeah.
She's a big Gio fan, but you got to get some like pink merch. You got to talk to Maddie about this.
I know.
She's all about it.
And the cartoon cars.
Well, before I knew you, I got her a Rico shirt because he had his dog.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right. Yep. And she wears that thing all the time. And I'm like,
shirts.
No, I go, we don't root for him.
Yep.
We like him.
Yeah.
We're okay with him. Yeah. He's our high limit guy.
Yeah.
We root for the 18. It's fun. But for real, like, that really helps us. And we're not only trying to grow Gio's brand, but the sport. We're trying to help everybody.
Definitely.
Always Race Day. If you could follow us and share all that good stuff as well. Thanks, man. This was fun. So we're off on the road tomorrow, right?
So I'll leave. Yeah, it's tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, tomorrow we leave for Jackson. Race Jackson Friday, Saturday.
That track too.
Yeah, Jackson's badass. I like Jackson too. Great facility. I hope Todd keeps putting money into it and keeps building it bigger. But Jackson this weekend, Grand Forks Fargo next weekend, Husitz for the rescheduled High Bank thing, and then leave Sunday to go to California. So
we get the West Coast.
West Coast.
I love the West Coast because y'all are on it. Like,
the drive sucks, but yeah.
Will Dom be out there? Is he gonna race?
Yep, he'll race high limits this weekend, I believe. It's like Hanford, Tulare, Placerville, I think, and then they're there for 3 weeks. Then we're there for 3 weeks.
Cool. Thanks, brother.
Yep.
Good job. Proud of you. Giovanni Scelzi. Thanks to Aiden Wyatt for producing. Also want to credit the Dirt Vision and World Racing Group for some of the video you saw during this. We didn't get to see it. We're putting that in after the fact. And then foxsports.com for that NASCAR video as well. We will be back sooner rather than later. We're probably going to have to do one with Gio on his cell phone, but that's okay. We'll make it work.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. We'll talk to you guys around the way.